Welcome to Situational Awareness, a podcast brought to you by Militarnyi.com. I'm your host Valentina Kuzik, and today we are speaking with Maksym Yemelianov, a Ukrainian diplomat and, until recently, Head of NATO Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. We'll talk about how cooperation between Ukraine and NATO has changed since the full-scale invasion, and whether Ukraine will eventually become a NATO member. Maksym is confident that it will. Welcome to Situational Awareness show, Maksym. So nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you worked with. We know that you are an ambassador and a diplomat, and you also worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as somebody who leads the NATO department, right? Can you tell us a bit more about your background, especially in relation to NATO?
Sure. Well, actually, I'm a career diplomat. I'm in this service for almost 20 years. I had 2 diplomatic postings. We have an opportunity to work abroad 4 years, for example, and extension 1 year, so 5 overall. And then we have to go back to Ukraine and work in a diplomatic service. And then we can be posted somewhere else. So basically, I was posted to London. And my recent posting was to Berlin, Germany, where I was a deputy ambassador, well, actually over 5 years, since 2019 until 2024. And yes, well, when I came back from Berlin with my family, I was heading NATO Affairs until recently, just completed my tenure. And I was deeply involved in our interaction with NATO allies, and pushing our agenda as far as we could under the conditions that we have right now.
It seems you completed a lot since you were in Germany, and we can say that Germany is helping us more and more. Can you tell us how the relations, Ukrainian relations with NATO were evolving during these years? Not, of course, till 2024, but even earlier since you were into this topic.
I think the pivotal moment was, of course, the full-scale invasion, 2022, and there was a complete shift of paradigm in our relations. So they have dramatically changed, not only for Ukraine, but also for NATO, because in my personal opinion, until probably not only until 2022, but also until 2014, when the Russian aggression started, NATO was in crisis. I would call it probably even a crisis, lack of census, because it was created to counter the spread of communism during the Cold War. And 2022 was a renaissance period for us. 3 last summits, basically the first one, Madrid summit of NATO 2022, then Vilnius, then Washington, and the latest one, Hague. They brought a lot to our partnership. And right now we have absolutely new dynamics. So we can talk later about our NATO path, but overall I think that we are closer to NATO than never before.
When you're saying closer to NATO, what do you mean? Do you mean the membership? Do you mean like closer cooperation? What exactly?
I mean, first and foremost, practical cooperation. In terms of membership, we're not there yet for obvious reasons. NATO membership remains our strategic course that is enshrined in Constitution and supported by the absolute majority of Ukrainians. But we understand that there is no consensus on membership. It's not a new story. It has nothing to do with, let's say, political moods right now in particular countries. It's an overall trend. We failed to secure invitation to join. That was not Ukraine's fault. There was simply no political will and consensus
among NATO members.
Yeah, among NATO members. In the end of the day, the difference between EU track and NATO track is that in case of NATO, you don't have clear criteria to join. Well, overall, it's a matter of political will. Well, the case of Sweden and Finland clearly show that. So basically, our main message right now is that, okay, if you are not ready to take us right now, then let's strengthen our defense capabilities. Let's move closer in terms of interoperability, in terms of practical cooperation. And I think that we have gone a long way.
Right. So from what I've learned from the NATO website, right, they do have a special page dedicated to their cooperation in Ukraine, and it started in 1997. And the mechanism was called NATO-Ukraine Commission. Yeah. And then later in 2023, it was replaced by NATO-Ukraine Council, right? And on the NATO website, it is written that within this mechanism, Ukraine sits alongside all NATO member states as an equal participant, right? Nice words, but what does it mean in practical terms, right?
It's not a math, so to say. It's not rocket science. I can explain it to you. Indeed, NATO-Ukraine Commission was created probably in 1997. I don't remember the exact year, and it was quite a useful platform. Although I have to make a caveat here to say that when we had NATO-Ukraine Commission, Russia and NATO, before 2008, had Russia-NATO Council. Yes. And what happened with this commission? So it was format NATO members plus Ukraine. So not on equal footing. What does this mean? This means that basically any country that wants to block the meetings in this format can do that. And since 2017, when we had deterioration of our relations with Hungary, Hungary, as NATO member, started to simply block it.
So kind of Ukraine couldn't participate as at this NATO Commission format, right?
We have, at that time, I was not directly involved, but I know the story. We tried different creative formats, how we can still gather together with allies. But unfortunately not in the form of this NATO-Ukraine Commission. It was actually blocked until, I think, 2022. Then 2023, Vilnius Summit, there have been some very important decisions taken also in terms of our cooperation with NATO. And one of that was to create this NATO-Ukraine Council. Well, this is the sort of a higher step of partnership between two sides. And this indeed means that right now we have a format, not 32 member states plus Ukraine, but 33, which means that if we want to convene a meeting of NATO-Ukraine Council, even extraordinary meeting, for example, and we have already done that with success. For example, you remember, I think it was November 2024, Areshnik case. So we convened the meeting. And our stakeholders were reported to all members of the alliance what actually happened and what we expect from our allies. So I would frame it as a very good anti-crisis platform that we can use when we want, without any practical decisions during the meeting, but still it's a food for our partners to think and then decide, okay, what is appropriate measures should be taken because of the situation A, B, or C.
Okay, so were any particular action points taken after that particular meeting that you're mentioning, so we can understand better the mechanism?
Well, they can happen. For example, one of the topics why we convened meetings were deterioration of situation in the Black Sea. It was 2023, and what measures we expect from NATO to take. Then the protection.
Did NATO take any measures in response to that kind of meeting?
Yes, not every measures I can say in
okay,
public explicit, yes, that were taken. But believe me, behind closed doors, the work is going on. And
so it's not about only about being concerned and like talking. Not only that, but some concrete steps that you just can't enclose right now, right?
Listen, honestly, sometimes it both. Sometimes I feel that we're just explaining, asking, but we don't get any adequate response.
Right.
Yes, sometimes we know that particular actions were taken that I don't want to say in public, or at least look. In the end of the day, what is NATO? NATO consists of member states. So basically, it's still. Many decisions decided on a bilateral basis. For example, if we have a very bad situation with our energy infrastructure when Russia just shouts, and then we are, for example, today or tonight, then we also use this platform. And again, it's not a silver bullet, yes, but we understand that. But still, it's better to have it. It's better to have a platform where we can raise our concerns and expect response from our partners.
Right. Well, before any action point can be taken, we have to talk, right? So it's at least the first steps, right?
In action.
How about Russia? You mentioned that Russia also had this mechanism in place of the Council, NATO-Russia Council. How about now?
It didn't survive.
Okay.
It didn't survive.
So it was stopped, it was cancelled?
It was cancelled.
Can you tell us when exactly?
Well, good question. I think it was cancelled in 2022. We have to check it, honestly. But I think that even after 2014, we still have not the full meetings of the council, but at least some gatherings of NATO and Russian officials. So it was still channels that existed.
Channels of communication.
Exactly.
Right. You mentioned the summits after 2022, and you mentioned the specific one in Hague that was successful, would you say? Can you tell us what were the main outcomes and how they are? Are there any particular influence of those kind of outcomes, action points that were produced during the Hague summit?
I think the summit in The Hague was very important. My personal assessment that it was successful, and I would even say very successful for Ukraine. It was also one of the main responsibilities of my team within the foreign ministry, but in close cooperation with other ministries and agencies. So the main takeaway of the summit is that allies committed to 5% of GDP defense spending until 2035. This decision was long overdue, and our main task was to ensure that support of Ukraine is also embedded in this commitment. And we succeeded in having this. So basically, if you look at the final communique, the final declaration of the summit, which is very short, probably the shortest one we have for many, many years, even decades. The reason is obvious, because not every country was happy with the a bunch of papers as it was before. So we have a clear commitment that this 5% will also include long-term financial support for Ukraine on military purposes, on defense purposes, and plus, what is also very important, support for Ukraine's defense industry that is rapidly evolving. Plus, Ukraine was the only country within this couple of small paragraphs that was mentioned, the only country that was mentioned as a partner, not a direct ally. Plus, Russia was reconfirmed as a geopolitical threat. And most importantly, there was a clear definition that security of Ukraine contributes to security of Euro-Atlantic area. And you have to take in mind that this was summit during the first summit during Trump second period. And honestly, our expectations, we were worried because we didn't know what to expect in terms of support of Ukraine. And expectations were very low. But I think that amid these low expectations, we got a maximum we could. There was no mentioning of Euro-Atlantic integration, our path to NATO, but we have a decision of Washington Summit 2024, which states that the path to membership is irreversible. So this commitment was not reconsidered. And basically, we proceed from the fact that this commitment stands. Of course, you can say, well, this is just pure words, declarations.
Right.
I understand. But believe me, in current environment, in current political fluctuations, different administrations, and so on, to have this commitment that stands is equally important for us.
Okay, there is a lot to unpack here, especially regarding like the particular thing that you mentioned, like 5%, and the industrial cooperation, which with Ukrainian defense companies, which I am very much interested in. Let's start with the cooperation with the defense companies. So what does it mean, again, in practical terms, and are there any particular action point taken after the Hague summit in terms of supporting Ukrainian industries?
Well, first of all, probably I will specify what actually this 5% means, because 5% is divided into two parts. The first is 3.5%, which is real weapons, hardware, so to say, and 1.5 everything related to
right, like
defense.
Infrastructure building.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And,
that was in use, so we expect our audience to be a little bit, familiar with that.
For us, it was important that support of Ukraine was included in this 5% without specification, 3.5 or 1.5, because different countries have different approaches on that. But what does it mean in practice? It means that a lot of funds Europe will be investing in its own defense industry to ramp up production, to scale. And this will go parallel to support of Ukraine, because we have this strategic framework that security of Europe contributes to security of Ukraine contributes to security of Europe. Then obviously this will be also an opportunities for Ukraine's defense industry. Right now we are working with our partners, Ukrainian government, to push them to invest more in our defense industry. So basically we have three main directions. The first direction is a bilateral support for defense purposes. In the end of the day, and this is a very important caveat, NATO doesn't send lethal weapons to Ukraine and never did. So basically, it's decided on bilateral basis. Basically, Germany wants to provide Ukraine with particular amount of billions of euros, Britain with particular amounts of billions of pounds, and so on. So it's decided on the bilateral. But what NATO does, NATO actually collect this information, sum it up, and present.
So the role of NATO here is more of the coordination and not exact, sending any kind of supplies, right?
In this respect, yes. On bilateral basis, yes. For example, last year, we received from allies over 50 billion euros financial support solely for defense purposes. And this is important point to stress. This year, my personal assessment that we will have not less, so also probably within this 50 billion euros or so. But you have to keep in mind that this amount also includes not only weapons, but also maintenance, logistics, and so on. So this is the first one, the most important, bilateral support. The second one is new mechanisms that we have also with NATO. For example, PURL, prioritized Ukraine requirements list. What does it mean? We, United States, are not giving us weapons
anymore,
just because they want to do so for free. And in this respect, we, together with President Trump and General Secretary of NATO Mark Rutte, he also played an important role, established a new mechanism that allows us to buy critical only American weaponry at the expense of European partners and Canada. And, this may sound less or not that
less beneficial to Ukraine.
Exactly, less beneficial than it was before, but still it's better than there was the situation in the first months of his terms.
So you think it's better because there are some of the critical weapons that cannot be replaced by anybody else but the United States?
There are different dimensions in this respect. First, and this is also important in terms of paradigm shift, because this is for the first time, and I want to underline this is for the first time that NATO is actually providing, is a coordinator and plus dealing with lethal weapons to Ukraine. This has never been before, even during other administrations. Though this is for the first, and Trump actually sanctioned that with support of Rutte, that we have instrument that allows us to buy, again, American weaponry, first and foremost, air defense equipment, and use NATO account to finance. So basically, how does it work in practice? European country wants to contribute. So it sends money to a special NATO account, then NATO is paying for these weapons
to US.
So
buying from another NATO member?
Well, basically.
Technically,
yes. But not to forget that this was important message that Trump brought, so that it's important for Europeans to pay more. And again, this decision, 5%, was also a result of Trump's pressure. But I probably would agree with him when he assessed that Europe needs to pay more, because in the end of the day, it's a war in Europe. But when we have this platform like PURL, it's also important for transatlantic unity, because NATO is not only Europe. NATO is about US plus Europe, transatlantic unity, and we need to preserve it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that as well. And, I probably you also watched the latest interview by The Economist given by Mark Rutte as well. And he very well kind of channels this message exactly that you are saying, that it's that he has to praise Donald Trump because he, made Europeans pay more. So it's also... we can discuss it because not all the countries are ready to pay more. And also there is a debt crisis, economic hardships and other stuff happening in Europe. At the same time, it is very interesting that you are mentioning about the NATO account. That's a separate conversation. But also, we are seeing from what was already contributed to PURL. Yeah, I've watched the statistics, and there are, countries... Nordics, Baltics, that are seems more interested in contributing, right? My question to you probably is the following: what is exactly the role of NATO, given the fact that we have the countries having bilateral relations with Ukraine, being willing to contribute to Ukraine's defense and buying weaponry, right? Is it only the coordination mechanism, or is it something more? There are any other benefits of NATO as a structure?
If I may add one point on geography, because geography matters. And there's a clear pattern that we see, that the closer you are to Russia, the more you spend on defense. It's the first point.
And the better you understand the situation.
The better you understand the situation, and the more you support Ukraine. So if we look at that general picture, we will see that, unfortunately, we have 5-6 countries that are the main contributors to support of Ukraine.
Well, Canada is also contributing a lot, right?
In terms of PURL
right.
and overall, yes. But my key message has always been and still is that in 2022, in the latest strategic NATO concept, Russia was defined as the main geopolitical threat to the alliance. And my point is very simple. Okay, guys, if you are saying that Russia is the main geopolitical threat to Europe, and if you are saying that security of Ukraine contributes to security of Europe and Euro-Atlantic space, then you have to spend more, you have to support more Ukraine. Because, well, it's also a matter of burden sharing. And even with this 5% commitment, we see that many countries are reluctant to spend more. Yes, they have their own domestic problems. I understand that. But in the end of the day, it's the security of Europe that is at stake. In terms of our bilateral cooperation, again, we have favorites. We have countries that are sort of the most supportive Scandinavian countries, Baltic countries, know that the price and what is at stake. We also have countries that are close to my heart, Germany. And I think that we can also discuss it with you. I think that overall with Germans, we are on the very right track. I feel that they are the biggest supporter in terms of defense right now. They invest a lot. And the third dimension that I forgot to say when we were talking about concrete support to Ukraine is actually investment in Ukraine's defense industry, because we have different models. Well, the most famous one is Danish, of course, because they were the first one. And they increase the funds that they provide. But we also have right now Germany also spending. We have also France, by the way, that joins this initiative. We have other countries, Netherlands. So basically, I think that there is big opportunities there, both for Ukraine and for our partners, because in the end of the day, it's investment that can get a very good return, because you have access to cutting-edge technologies, innovations. Plus, you also have, you show your political support and you get political benefits from that.
Are you happy with how Europe is spending, not in terms of percentage, because we already discussed there are some countries that are spending more, some are less, but the structure of the spending itself, right? From what we were talking with different producers, including those in Europe, they are saying that, European defense ministries, some of them still buy like large weapons, but don't buy those modern ones because it's just easier for the ministries to do that. So they're not happy with how the situation is developing. Also, some of those ministries funding their own producers, because when you're saying about buying from United States, it makes sense if we cannot replace, those weapons they are producing. But at the same time, it seems that Europe have to develop its own capacities, right? So is it doing that thing? What do you think?
Well, there are two ways to look at this, macro level and micro level. I will start with macro level. Whether I'm happy how much countries, NATO countries, sort of invest and support. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not happy. Not only in terms of support for Ukraine, but also in terms of their own domestic spending. Look, 2014, when the Russia annexed Crimea and started the war in Donbass, there was a NATO summit in Wales. I was there because at that time I worked in our embassy.
London, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there. And it was clear that this is a long story. It was after a war in Georgia. It was clear the intentions of Russia. And at that time, NATO countries committed to spend at least 2%, not 5%, of GDP on defense spending.
And it wasn't done.
Until 2024, so basically 10 years time frame. And well, the 1/3 failed. 1/3 failed. So of course I'm not happy, and if some countries think that, okay, well, Ukraine is just somewhere in eastern borders of Europe and so on, we have nothing to do with that. No, it's right now we are witnessing the evolution of modern warfare, which means that drones can get you everywhere. And we're actually doing this right now, flying over airports and so on, violating airspace.
And not only the drones, though.
Yes, jets and so on. So, and I'm not happy. On a micro level, we have different approaches, as you rightly mentioned. So we have some countries that support more domestic industry and want saying that we want to create jobs, want to support our domestic industry, we want it to evolve. Probably with co-partner with Ukrainian companies, or absorbing them or buying them. I don't know, different ways to cooperate. They are less reluctant to invest state funds or even private capital into Ukrainian defense ecosystem. Right. We have countries that has less developed domestic base, and they are more inclined to invest because they understand that they can learn from Ukraine, they can bring Ukrainian companies to them. I don't want to say the regions or particular countries.
Why? It was my next question.
Okay, I will give you my personal view.
Well, it's probably Baltics.
Baltic Scandinavians, they want to explore, they want to learn, they want to co-produce. So they clearly understand that this is win-win, and they are more keen and eager to support Ukrainian defense ecosystem. Other countries like UK or probably to some extent Germany, they want to support their domestic industry, but still they try different approaches. They, for example, they are buying modern systems like Iris-T from own primes, and then bring them to Ukraine. There are some German primes that think, okay, probably we can directly sell our expensive and great stuff, by the way, to Ukraine. But unfortunately, it's not a viable option for the time being, because we still rely heavily on foreign support that we get. So I think that overall, this defense market in Ukraine has a very big potential, but also very big risks.
You mean the risks for investors, right?
Well, I don't think the risk of investor. I think that overall the private investment is very limited. I think that there is a potential to scale and grow. What we have seen during the latest rounds, that we have more money flowing in, which is good. We have well-known venture funds that are operating here. But it's not big numbers, right? It's very limited, because everyone is very cautious. Okay, now we invest. What will we get in the long run? I can understand that, but my biggest worry is that if big primes will start simply absorbing or buying Ukrainian companies, then we will not have a chance to build a real innovation defense hub in Ukraine, which should be our strategic goal.
So what's the way out for us? How do you see it?
The way out for us is to combine partnership, investment, and institutional support that we can get from our government. So basically work with those countries that can support us, think twice of IP, know-how protection and technology protection, because there are risks there as well. We don't have respective legislation.
At least we can manage this,
We can and we should. We have two types of defense companies in Ukraine, as you perfectly know. We have established players before 2022, and we have new ones. So when they have different objectives, sometimes they coincide, but overall established players, they also want scaling, they want internalizations. New ones, they want more funds and so on. So basically, our main goal, for all of us, is to satisfy the needs of these companies and support the better ones, because it's a market and not everyone will survive. And this is also fine.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, what can Ukrainian state do, right? Because you are a diplomat, and we can probably think from this kind of state perspective. We can make, private investment come to Ukraine. So we can, by exactly what you're saying, providing like no corruption space, like, legislative frameworks. Yeah, that's what we can do to make money flowing in Ukraine. Because I totally agree with you. And recently I was, like a couple of days ago, there was an announcement in New York Times about a small startup made by two 20 years old and engaging $100 million US for their one startup. And at Brave One, we have an announcement that during 2025, we aim to attract $100 million. This is just shocking numbers. So one US-based startup is able to attract more money than the whole industry in Ukraine. So this industry in Ukraine is basically, that everyone is saying, more innovative, yes, and has more potential, and exactly battlefield tested like no other.
I completely agree with you, and that's a shame that we have this situation. And this is actually one of the directions that we work with the EU and NATO, because they also have their funds, for example, European Defense Fund or NATO Innovation Fund, but they are restricted. They are restricted to invest in Ukrainian defense companies because they are not located.
But Ukraine became an associate member.
Exactly, just recently. And I think that overall we are making slow progress. I think that we will start. This is also always the first step to be associate member. Then probably we will be completely embedded. This is the way forward. Otherwise, if we don't have the mutual ecosystem defense, and if we're not integrated, then this will be a worse of situation for both of us. So in terms of what our country can do, I think that we need better regulations and legislation. Sometimes I'm approached by my networks in Germany or somewhere else, and there is a lack of understanding how to effectively engage in Ukraine. And I'm surprised sometimes to hear that, we want to invest in Ukraine, we want to co-produce, we want to have localization, but we don't understand it. I think that there is a big potential to navigate sort of these companies. But then when they ask, can you help us? Can you help us make some introductions in Ukraine? Or because we understand that you have to meet a particular person, and then probably this person can help us to solve some problems that we have right now in Ukraine. This is for those companies that are already operating here. And I'm asking, this is the way you're doing business in your countries.
What kind of problems are you mentioning, though?
Depends.
Legal stuff?
Regulation, the lack of understanding how the system works. This is absolutely reasonable when you're operating in a very difficult wartime landscape. Well, not necessarily, because in particular countries like Germany, they're also very bureaucratic.
So whose fault is that? Is it the fault of Ukrainian state? Because I've been hearing very favorable feedback about like Brave One cluster that is responsible, among other things, to talking to investors and foreign companies.
I don't think that it's lack of
state initiative, right?
Initiatives from our side. I think that unfortunately, it's very often the lack of understanding from the side of our partners. Because from one side, we see that that we protect democracies, that we support Ukraine until the end, as long as it takes, and so on. But when it comes to some practical things, there is a perception that, we just simply to need to know some stakeholders in Ukraine, then we can get some opportunities that we need. So it's a lack of understanding how the system works. It's a lack of systematic approach. And sometimes it's also a misperception of what is actually happening here. Because you're absolutely right. We have hundreds, I would even say thousands of companies, Ukrainian companies, that really bring evolution of warfare. Not only in Ukraine, this evolution will define the future. And innovation cycles are 3-6 months, right? Everything is changing rapidly.
Or even shorter.
Even shorter, yes. So if you want to have a good technology, you have to be in Ukraine. Yes, you have to test your capability, but you have to learn. You have to learn from us. And this is the message that we send to our NATO partners, you partner, that, guys, you have to invest more, you have to support Ukraine's defense companies more, because in the end of the day, you will benefit more from that. Our technology, they are more cost effective. They are simply better.
Right.
They are combat proven.
Well, they do have. I think they do understand that, but they just have different ways of tackling this. Though talking about good examples, there is Quantum Systems, who are investing in Ukrainian startups. So they're also building production facilities here. They do have their representatives here on the ground. There are Lithuanian companies who even send their engineers on the front line to get their first-hand feedback, not just, hearing back from Ukrainian combat units. So, I would say there is that trend that you are describing, but there is also another side of those great examples, and we really want to highlight them because those best practices that everyone should follow, especially some of them are from Germany where you've been posted.
When I was in Berlin since 2022, I was responsible for defense cooperation as well. And basically you'll remember how it all started. From 5,000 helmets to 40 billion euros of defense support from Germany. So we were shaping that Zeitenwende policy, the absolutely new paradigm of support from Germany. And Quantum Systems is a very good example. They started to explore the field on the early stage, which was important. This gives them as a first mover particular advantage.
Right.
And they made a very good capability that is also sought after and good assessed at the front line by our soldiers. So I think this is a very good example of cooperation that we have.
Before our recording, you've mentioned that Ukraine is increasingly viewed as security provider to NATO countries, EU. My question to you is, that's we hear probably everyone in this room thinks so, but do European countries and the citizens of the countries understand this and believe in this? Since you've mentioned already, some of the countries are quite reluctant in increasing their defense spending, fighting for their countries in case the situation will shift. Yeah, that's what surveys show us. And what exactly Ukraine can do to actually, make European and NATO country citizens our true allies?
I think we're on the right track. Really, I see some positive movements in this respect in terms of shift of perception. We're not there yet. Of course, we don't see figures as we want to see in terms of majority of people. But I think that the understanding growing that Ukraine is really can contribute to Europe's and Euro-Atlantic security. I want to mention that Article 10 of North Atlantic Treaty, the founding act of created NATO, this article says that every European country that shares democratic values and can strengthen the alliance should be a member. And I believe that Ukraine perfectly fits to this frame, right? Why we are saying that Ukraine is a net provider? I think that times when Ukraine was seeking protection under NATO umbrella solely, they are over. This is not one-way street. We contribute already. And I want to repeat, if you think that Russia is your biggest geopolitical threat, and we are countering Russian aggression in Ukraine with the blood of Ukrainian soldiers, then we are paying a very big price. So I think that if the realization comes, then allies should do more and support us more. We've been discussing with you, Valentina, that NATO allies committed 5%. We spent 27% this year on our defense. We have the biggest army in Europe. We have the most experienced army in Europe. We have companies that's providing cutting-edge technologies and innovation. Everyone is learning from us. Digital platform Delta is used right now as a core program in NATO exercises. So we are already bringing technologies to NATO. So basically, when I'm saying this, we contribute not less than NATO, and NATO needs us not less than we need NATO. Yes, of course, we can say that NATO membership will be the most cost-effective option for Ukraine, because it's based on the core principle of Article 5, collective defense. And many people can say that, well, how strong is this Article 5? I don't like this discussion. Why? Because let's look at the facts. And the fact is that when NATO was created in 1949, since then, there was not a single case when a NATO country was attacked by another NATO country. Basically, there was only one time when Article 5 was invoked, and it was September 11th, 2001, when Al-Qaeda attacked New York and the United States.
So what you're saying is basically that Ukraine is already part of NATO, it's just that we're not formally there, right?
What I'm saying that de facto, Ukraine is already in NATO. De jure, not yet. I understand the skepticism, but I think that this day of membership can come sooner than some people think. We don't know, because we are living in a very turbulent war times, historic times, and everything could happen.
Okay, let's end on this optimistic, though uncertain note. But I fully agree with you that we are living in an uncertain, turbulent world. So this is what we have now. Thank you so much, Maksym, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Valentina. Pleasure.